Okay, everybody. Hello and welcome to An Englishman, an Irishman, and a Load of Bollocks. I'm Dave, the Englishman, and I'm with Paul, who is the Irishman. And today we are going to talk about writing. It was Paul's idea to do a do a podcast about writing. So we're going to do a two-parter. So today we're just going to talk about what writing means to us, why we write, what we get out of it, and probably the biggest question, why writing is so important for the individual and for society, I guess. And then we'll do a second parter as well, where we'll probably talk a little bit more about our writing and read some bits out. But I think, Paul, we're going to read a couple of bits out in this first episode as well, aren't we? So anyway, hi, Paul. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, it's a nice sunny day here. The rain is gone for now, so maybe that's telling. Yeah, we both. I mean, the idea of writing, it's very broad, isn't it? But we both like writing. That's another connection we have.
Yeah.
And you've written a book now, Dave. So you're considered an esteemed writer now. So I'm in great company.
Oh, I don't know about that.
All jokes aside, you have written a great book. I write for a newspaper that's been part of the resistance, part of the pushback. I write for the Light Paper UK. I've been a contributor with them from more or less the very beginning. So in many ways, I would say I'm not a Johnny come lately. I've been with them since October 2020, November 2020. So basically, I think with the two of us, I find writing, it's cathartic, it's relaxing, it's rewarding. But on the flip side as well, and I'm sure you've discovered this with your book, and sometimes I find it when I'm writing articles for the Light Paper, it can be challenging, it can be frustrating, it can be, you're dealing with a lot of heavy content that is unhealthy, sometimes for your soul. But overall, it's good for the head, it's good for the mind. And also, we both value the importance of the written word, don't we? And in this day and age, more than ever, after the last 2-3 years, the written word is a weapon, it's a tool to slow down the nefarious plans and evil beings that walk this earth. And if it's writing or writing articles, excuse me, or writing a book or using our voice via podcasts, if that's what's expected to take on the insidious beings, let's do it.
Yeah, that's a perfect introduction, I would say, Paul. And it calls to mind that famous saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. Yeah. And, I was only thinking about that saying before, and, what does that mean? What's the meaning behind that? So, I mean, for me, the sword, it's a tool that ends things. It destroys, whereas the pen is a beginning, because it's an opening of a question. It's an opening of an idea. It's the beginning of a conversation. It can be the beginning of a philosophy. Of course, it can be the beginning of a book. And words, for me, words are the bedrock of society. I am of the opinion that we are living in an age of totalitarianism at the moment. Yes, populations aren't enslaved by guns and bullets, but they are by ideologies and propaganda, and by pharmacological cartelism as well.
Very subtle.
And it's very, very subtle and insidious in so many different ways. And the way, as you touched on there, the power of words at a time of rising tyranny is paramount. It is absolutely essential that we do not censor our spoken word. And probably even more important is that the written word and the truth and the idea behind the written word is allowed into the public sphere. And it's so incredibly important.
We shouldn't cave under cancer culture, because that's what they want us to do. They want us to self-censor ourselves. They want us to be shaken as we're writing, thinking, if I write this, will someone come and get me and, basically read me out? But the last 3 years, Dave, it's been, as we said numerous times before, it's been a psychological war. It's been a war on humanity. It's been a war of good versus evil. It's a war on information. But fundamentally, it's been a war on the truth. They've lied to us. They've deceived us so blatantly and so openly. And how we respond to that is speaking the truth, as we said, via newspaper, via the pen. Let the pen become our weapon of mass destruction, you know? And if you think about previous times in wars, men have had to wave goodbye to their loved ones, to their families, to their wives, as they go off to a foreign land to take on a foreign enemy, to meet evil head on. In this war, we don't have to do that. We're lucky. We don't have to take up arms. The only arms we take up is a pen. That's our gun. That's our silver bullet. Is we get up in the morning and we, as you said before, Dave, and you've said it yesterday in your really good video about the awakened movement, is we create, rather than sharing this mindless information. So as I said, the pen, as you perfectly said, it can become a very powerful tool. Words hold power at times. Words can change movements, you know, and they can become inspiring in the right context.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a reason why those who wish to control, those who are pulling the levers of tyranny, there's a reason why those tyrants are scared of words. And they're scared of words because words are opinions, words are thoughts, and words, as you alluded to there, contain truth. And for those who wish to control and manipulate and deceive and spread tyranny and destruction, they fear words. They fear words more than anything else.
Words that have conviction as well.
Words that have conviction. And the reason for that is because healthy societies are built on a healthy relationship with truth and with ideas. Tyrannies are built on lies and deception and censorship. And I know I've struggled so much, a lot actually, with particularly with my YouTube videos, having so many YouTube videos taken down. Also in my day-to-day life as well, being censored by other people, and even sometimes self-censoring as well, which is the worst censorship of all. So we do live in a time where those of us who have ideas, who wish to contribute to debate and conversation, who want to get to the truth of the matter, the responsibility on us to speak our truth, and to elucidate our truth via the written word is absolutely critical. And so for that reason, Paul, I think we have an important role, particularly right now.
100%. And I think you would probably agree with this. There's two aspects of writing that kind of is influential for me, that drives me on to take it on to these people. Is one thing is, and I've always had this all throughout my life, is if I see something, I say something. So for instance, if I see, like when I was in school, if I see someone being bullied, or if I see someone acting the maggot, or in recent times, if we see injustices or immorality or degeneracy, we say something. Or in this case, we write something, you know, and we do with honor and integrity, and with truth in our hearts. And also, you kind of have an unnerving spirit about you. You know, I in many ways, I take the shackles off. I try and shoot from the hip. You know, I write with my heart on my sleeve, but more importantly, I have my head screwed in as well. And that's important. I don't let emotion get on top of me either. I have my head screwed in. Also, another aspect is, and I think it's a famous quote from an American writer. I think her name is Anne Dillard. I don't know much about her, but she did have a wonderful phrase about writing, which was write as if you're dying. As if you're dying next week. And basically, be brave, be courageous, be unafraid. As I said, take the shackles off. And there's something in that, isn't there? That I kind of write as if I could be dead next week. So be true to myself and write with honor.
Yeah, a powerful quote. Absolutely, the letting your heart bleed onto the page. It's writing from it's writing using your head, but the truth that you want to convey, it really does come from the heart. I mean, it really does come deep within the recesses of your being, your soul, your heart. So while we may logically stitch the thoughts together using our heads, that deep truth that all the best writing contains the deepest truths. I mean, I'm often fascinated by the Bible. Still, I think I'm right in saying still the most widely read book in the world, and the most
I'd imagine
widely
so.
purchased
Yeah,
book in the world as well. Now, I think the reason for that is because it contains. There's never been any book written since the Bible, right? Whether you believe in God or not, that is able to get to the truth of human nature,
yeah,
and it contains the most fundamentally deep truths about our experience in this realm as we understand it. And I think for that reason, and it's
yeah,
also where so many Bible stories, and I'm not an expert on the Bible, by the way,
yeah,
but just the ones that I do know and what I've looked into,
yeah.
how we're able to impart the meaning from those
Yeah, the
Bible
fables.
teachings, in our own lives as well.
Yeah,
So, and I think that for me is emblematic of what good writing should be.
yeah.
It should
And
be about truth. It should be
100,
about truth. That
that should be
person's truth. Yeah,
should be foundational at least.
yeah,
And what the, as John Waters calls them, the journal liars or the prostitutes, and we know they're biased and they're corrupted and they're they're just degenerate as well. But
yeah,
they've lost the true foundations of what it is to be a writer and a reporter and a journalist, which is you inquire and you inform the
yeah,
public about what's going on,
yeah, yeah.
and you be open-minded.
Hmm.
And what they've become irrational, they become illogical, and as I said, they become corrupted and biased. And it's such a shame. Like, I look at journalists in Ireland now, we have people like Roisin Ingle. Like, my God, if she was in India, she'd be sacred. We have
Hmm.
Fintan O'Toole, a middle-class wanker, always
Yeah,
looking down at people.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they don't, and the thing is, they can get away with it. But there
Hmm.
used to be a time when writing and journalism was a noble profession.
Hmm.
I grew up in a household where I was surrounded by books from John Pilger, the wonderful Australian reporter, Robert Fisk, who wrote extensively in the Middle East. And you could even say, even though they worked for the mainstream media, John Simpson was a wonderful war reporter. Fergal Keenan was a wonderful war reporter. They got down and dirty. They were there,
Hmm.
and they were courageous and they were brave. Even in an Irish context, there was a time where we had good journalists. Even Fintan Brown used to wind up the politicians. He'd ask them the tough questions. And in Ireland, we have the great John Waters, wonderful, wonderful. I think he's been called a journalist now, so I call him a wonderful writer.
Yeah,
He has been like our spiritual leader. And why he's become a spiritual leader is because he speaks the truth and he's
yeah,
unafraid. And
yeah,
they've cancelled him, they've shut him down. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what others think of him.
yeah.
They're the journalists we want. They're the writers we want, not these sleeveens, these scumbags who take their little wage every week. Dirty money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely, Paul. And I share your disdain for the journalistic profession. I have disdain
yeah,
for most professions actually now.
yeah,
And wow, how my eyes have been opened up in the last few years. But you talked about
yeah,
being unafraid there. And yeah, it's fear. Fear compels a lot of the majority of journalists. They're
yeah,
weak people who are
yeah.
merely mouthpieces for the machine, spewing these
Mouthpieces. Yeah,
absolutely mindless, brainless,
yeah.
gormless, idiotic ideologies
Gorm.
constantly
We
on
could go with
repeat.
so many adjectives here.
Every single day. Now, the antidote to that, to those lies and that
Yeah,
cowardice and that
yeah,
idiocy is imagination, is
yeah,
creativity, is honesty,
yeah,
and is truth.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
know that's what we both, for all of our
yeah,
flaws, and I mean, I've called my book "The Imperfect Individual" as
yeah,
as a nod to we need to celebrate imperfections.
yeah,
So for all of my flaws and imperfections, and all your flaws and imperfections, we both genuinely, through our writing, I think we can safely say, try to convey our perception of the world in
yeah,
in a manner that feels true and that feels
yeah,
wholesome to us. And I know that we're going to try and read. Well, we're not going to try and read. We're going to read. I'm going to read a passage from my book, and I know you've got
brilliant.
something to read in
Yeah.
this podcast. So should we do that as well, Paul?
Yeah, and just when we're talking about truth, and I'll finish in this before we read our
Yeah,
pieces,
yeah, yeah,
is the truth is an inconvenience to their twisted narratives. That when we speak our truth, they feel uncomfortable with it, don't they? Hence the reason they hate us, they despise us, because we're close to the bone.
yeah,
We highlight their frailties and their faults. But fundamentally, these are weak people. Like I mentioned a few journalists there, Roisin Ingle, Fintan the Tool. I'm thinking of the Journal online, publication in Ireland. It's just basically transition year students ran through the laptop. When fundamentally, when you see these people head on, they're weak, they're feeble. Hence the reason they shout about us from the luxury of their home. But yeah, I think you were going to read out a chapter. I actually have your book here somewhere. Yeah. So I do recommend it, guys. Dave is going to hate me for plugging it, because, but I would recommend it, guys. It is a wonderful book. And
Thanks, Paul.
You're going to hate me saying this, but everyone talks about Matthias Desmond's book, and it is a wonderful book. But there's a little old book here as well, everyone, that you should read. You know, just put it out there, Dave. Sorry, now you're blushing.
Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate it. Now, if anyone does want to, buy the book, they can get a copy in the. If you click the link in the description, there's a copy there. You can buy a copy there. I'm actually trying to find the chapter. Oh, here it is. Right. Okay. So I'm going to read out one chapter.
What page
Paul.
is it, Dave?
It's page 38. A chapter from.
Oh yeah.
From the book. And thanks very much for your kind words, Paul. I really do appreciate it. I do feel awkward plugging my book. I really do. But you know, I'm happy for other people to do it for me. But if anyone does want to buy a copy, the link's in the description. Anyway, so this chapter is called "Is the Spirit of Our Age a Lack of Spirit?" So it'll probably take me 3 or 4 minutes to read out. Is that okay, Paul?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, right, here we go. Is the spirit of our age a lack of spirit? The experience of living in 2020's Britain shocks me anew every day, but it also presents a deep fascination. As I have watched the once highly liberal, free, and open society ripping itself apart, I have experienced a maelstrom of emotions. Some days I have felt a visceral anger. Some days I have felt a debilitating sense of doom. And some days I have simply laughed at the incredible insanity on display everywhere I look. But I want to understand, why has this happened and how? Thus, I have spent many months pondering and trying to determine how people can allow itself to be manipulated into behaving in ways antithetical, not only to the values of a liberal and free society, but also to the essence of what it is to exist as a human being. To fully comprehend my thinking, I had to wade deep into the psychology of this confused and pitiful society. In summary, I believe that the country in which I live, together with many others in the West, is not only confused to the point of madness, but also suffering from a paralyzing lack of conviction and lacking in a worthy cause. On a subconscious level, meaning may be longed for, yet it is not understood how to find it. There is no altruistic aim, no common vision, no unifying truth. Thus, under conditions of rising oppression and relentless propaganda, this sense of captivating some common purpose begins to manifest in dangerous and deranged ways. Previous generations battled crippling poverty, fought wars against tyrants, and then built a society based on fairness, opportunity, and freedom. What about us? We convinced ourselves of the nobility in subjugation for the common good, lapped up the hero worship for standing 2 meters away from other people, patted ourselves on the back for muzzling ourselves in public, kidded ourselves that we were in a courageous and gallant war with nature, and proudly proclaimed on social media that we had been administered an experimental injection. We stood in our little circles 2 meters apart, dutifully wore our masks, religiously sprayed hand sanitizer on our skin, and pretended that this unhinged dystopia of dehumanization and robotic adherence to rules was to our benefit. And God forbid anybody who questioned this noxious doctrine or refused to participate. We can go even deeper. Could it be that our age has become so distracted by triviality, so enslaved by ideology, so beholden to government and media, so chewed up by a lack of moral fibre and fortitude, and so devoid of meaning that a destructive and insidious societal self-loathing has developed? Are the people paralysed in a decades-long stupefying anaesthesia, waiting to rouse themselves and embrace sanity and morality once more? Or could it be something darker? Just as the individual must destroy much of his character on the journey to truth, is the same now happening for Western civilization? Must it implode before being born anew? There we go, Paul.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff, Dave. again, as we were saying, don't underestimate the power of the written word. And you just brilliantly highlighted how mediocrity and triviality, it's embraced and encouraged now. And I think you've just brilliantly kind of summed up the idea that there's more bodies in the world than souls, isn't there? In that
Unfortunately,
little
yes.
5 minutes there.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
Unfortunately. And I know you're going to read out something, Paul, in a couple of minutes. For me, it was difficult to write this book because, as you said, the content was so heavy. I had to do a lot of soul searching myself. I felt quite isolated and a lone voice for large parts when I was writing it. So I didn't actually enjoy my writing, but I had to write that book. I didn't want to write it, but I had to write it. It was a compulsion. It was I had a message from the deepest part of me saying this book needs to be written. But I know, Paul, that writing for you is a lot about, you mentioned it's cathartic and it crystallizes things and you enjoy it. And I know you've got something quite lovely to read out, haven't you, today as well?
Yeah, I was thinking about what will I read out today, because as I said, I am a regular contributor to the Light paper, and the Light paper has been very, very good to me. And so thank you, Darren, the editor there. I much appreciate it. As I said, I'm a regular contributor, and I've had a few full-page articles that I am proud of. I got a full-page article about the Dutch farmers and about Enoch Burke in Ireland and about political instability in Brazil and Pakistan, and about the convoy in Ottawa. So there's a lot of articles I'm proud of. I got a lovely article in about a French nun, which I might read out in part 2, which is inspiring. A 116-year-old French nun at that we can learn from. But I think as well, in our podcast, I've talked a lot about my kids, and I've mentioned Lisa. So I think this is an exclusive for the podcast. Now, Lisa might cringe when I read this, but I just thought, you know what? Why not? Why not? If that's okay, Dave.
Absolutely. Let's embarrass Lisa now. Okay, let's go.
Embarrass Lisa. Let's embarrass myself. Right. So it's called, we're okay for time, Dave, are we?
Yeah, we're fine for time. Yeah, we've got at least 10 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I titled it, Once in Your Life You Find Someone. In early 2020, just before evil was setting foot on Mother Earth, under the guise of a rebranded flu, my family and I visited the south coast of England for a flying visit holiday. The kids were babied with endless enthusiasm for what the mini break in Dorset could hold. Unfortunately, the clouds did not share their joyfulness of sunny disposition. When we arrived at a wet pool in Dorset, we were met with torrential rain. Even the ducks had umbrellas. Not to deter us, raincoats were the order of the day, and we set about exploring the quaint old town and wave-crashing harbour. To seek refuge from the rain, we found a soft play centre for the kids overlooking the harbour. My wife and I both agreed how nice it would be to come back in better weather, to relax, chill, and have a drink as we watched the ships go by. Against the sound and backdrop of crashing waves, we chatted and watched the kids explore the funhouse with ease. A song called Heaven was blaring out from the radio in the background. We both heard the song simultaneously and looked at each other with a glance and a wry smile. Vivid memories jolted out of our subconscious minds back to when our close friendship and loving relationship began. Queuing in the nursing building canteen in Dublin City University, a little worse for wear after the previous night's exploration of Dublin pubs, I lined up sheepishly for my soakage. Bacon, sausage and sugary tea was my craving to take the cobwebs off. This was September 2008 and my first week of university as a student nurse. In front of me, 2 girls and a lad were having a free-flowing conversation about music. Bryan Adams was the topic of discussion, and I cheekily eavesdropped the conversation. Always with the viewpoint that his music was really aimed at women, I impulsively responded to them, here, he's overrated, he's only rock music for girls. Normally quite reserved, quiet, even shy, the combination of a hangover, hunger pangs, and quite possibly alcohol fumes must have made me more impetuous than usual. For once, an unintended positive consequence of a hangover. Notwithstanding, my passing remarks did not deter them from allowing me to join them for breakfast. In all honesty, we could have been talking about quantum physics at that table and I would not have noticed. I could not keep my eyes off one of the girls. A striking brunette girl called Lisa, with a classic Audrey Hepburn beehive hairstyle, caught my attention and pulses. Wearing a multicoloured embroidered dress, her whole aura fascinated me. Speaking with a lovely soft Dublin accent, she had a sparkle in her eye and a cheekiness that I liked. I will not lie, she also had long legs that Claudia Schiffer would be proud of. It gave this novice psychiatric nurse his own intrusive dark thoughts. After breakfast at Tiffany's or the DCU canteen, the goal of the day was getting fitted for our nursing uniforms. A sense of dread for the male nurses, as the designer was clearly thinking this noble profession was still female orientated. The girls getting fitted for the tunics exhibited giddy and excited dispositions. Pride was taking place in wearing the new garments, childhood dreams being made. The boys, less enthusiastic, and many, including myself, regressed back to their first Holy Communion fitting. Grumpy, detached, disinterested, and monosyllable answers to the fitter, we nonetheless persevered. After the fitting, Lisa and I merrily got the bus into the city to chat more to our heart's content. We found a little snug part of a bar off O'Connell Street and chatted for the whole evening. We chatted about our childhoods and family upbringing. Her mother, a proud, elegant Kerry woman, and her father, a hard-working Monaghan man, both came to Dublin from the country to seek employment in the 1970s. Like a lot of suburban Dubliners, I gently poked fun at Lisa about her bugger DNA and that she was as much a country bumpkin than this Westmeath lad. Despite her country credentials, she still has the unique and charming Dublin trait of sharp wit. Conversation flowed, drink flowed, and our hearts flowed together ever closer on that special evening for us. Our hearts opened up as we chatted about everything and anything. We shared our first tender kiss that evening before we went our separate ways. As I got the bus back to my digs just off the home farm road, I thought back to a conversation I had the previous week. My father came up to Dublin to help me with my luggage. As we said our goodbyes, he left me with a thoughtful parting gift of At Swim, Two Birds by Flann O'Brien. He said something quite thought-provoking to me. His usual fatherly pep talk was, stick to Smiddix, less hangovers, don't come too pally with Paddy Power, fair enough, do a bit of study, and a vision of prophecy of, who knows, you might meet your future wife next week. Mullingar's version of Nostradamus. I smirked at his delusionality and waved him off. That night as I lay under the stars, all I could think about was Lisa. My stomach was aching with joy as the butterflies were flying manically around with nowhere to go. How I was feeling that night reminded me of a quote from Celtic wisdom. When love awakens in your life, it is like a rebirth, a new beginning. I knew from that first encounter my life would never be the same again, and a new beginning was awoken. Now, 15 years later, after that chance meeting in Dublin, we are happily married and living in rural Ireland with 4 little ones and another one on the way to keep us company. The great romantic poet John Keats once said, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. My Dublin darling and adorable kids are my treasured beauties and continue to bring so much joy and wonder to my life. That's it.
Wow, beautiful words, Paul. Absolutely heartfelt words. I mean, a couple of things. First of all, the imagery that you invoke there. You know, I was there in that cafe having a bacon butty, just watching the whole thing unfold. You talked about a song called Heaven playing. I don't know whether there's a couple of songs, but one of my favorite songs, actually, coincidentally, is Heaven by the Psychedelic Furs. So I don't know whether it was that might have been playing. Yeah, love the Psychedelic Furs. But in terms of what you've said there and the story, as I say, the imagery and the emotion, and your love for Lisa is so strong. Wait till she hears this. Wait till she hears it. You'll have to let me know what she says. It was brilliant.
She normally listens to these conversations when she's driving to work. So she
so it'll be a surprise for her then.
It'll be a surprise. Yeah. And look, all joking aside.
It was great, Paul. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely.
But Dave, I know you as well.
Very brave.
On this podcast, you know, we talk about a lot of serious issues, but we're lovers, we're not fighters, you know.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
We've good in our heart, and that's what instills our writing as well, is we've got love in our heart, and as we said, we value the importance of truth and honor and integrity, and we try to be as passionate as we are. We're not robots.
No, we're not robots.
We're not.
We can be rogues, can't we?
Sorry?
We can be rogues sometimes, but we're definitely not robots.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're not infallible. Yeah. And who would want to be?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, that was. I really enjoyed that. I'm looking forward actually to listening back to the podcast and hearing your story again there about how you met Lisa, because it was so inspiring, and as I say, the love that you've got for Lisa and the way you told the story and stitched it together. It was brilliant. It really was.
Thanks, and likewise, your piece was wonderful. I'm just curious, Dave. What are you working on next? Or do you, after you finish the book, do you still do writing, or is it just you put the pen down and you took a break?
Well, as I say, my first book, this book here, The Imperfect Individual. It's called The Imperfect Individual: Why Our World is in Turmoil and How You Can Save It. And essentially, I wanted to write about why the West is so confused and lacking in direction, why society values groupthink over personal insight, why ideologies won the battle against ideas, and why societies have become so enslaved to government and media narratives and to pharmacological cartelism, and what dangers that poses. Now, I didn't, as I say, I didn't enjoy writing the book. It was a grind. It was difficult. I felt a lot of pressure. It was difficult subject material. However, once I had the book in my hand and it was complete and I could actually physically hold it and read it, touch it, smell it, a real sense of achievement, you know, kind of a crowning glory from me. But the key thing, coming back to your question, is I'd like to write another book and feel a bit more cathartic, as a word you used, whilst doing it, to enjoy the experience more. So I do have an idea actually to expand on the theme, some of the themes in this book. I'm just intrigued, Paul, as to not so much the question of why some people are susceptible to media narratives, indoctrination, and brainwashing, but why there's a subsection of the population that are resistant to it. And I think the reasons are multifactorial. And I've thought a lot about it. I've got a lot of ideas and I've explored some of the concepts in my YouTube video, but I want to try and crystallize those ideas in my second book. So in terms of how is it going, I've written about 3 lines so far, and then I got a bit of writer's block. So, but that is the aim for the next year or two, is to write a second book. So
fascinating.
You know, I'll keep you up to date on how that's going and see whether we can. Of course, now I've written 1 book, I've got the confidence. I can bring a second book to fruition.
Confidence,
So
and that's a fascinating topic, because many people talk. We've talked till Kingdom Come about why people complied and why they were complicit, but why? What makes us tick? Why did we not comply? And also, as you say, it's quite multi-layered and complex, because within families who might have had the same upbringing and the same early upbringing, and core beliefs driven and vivid memories. So some family members went left and some people went right, you know, and it's fascinating, you know. And I'd say to explore that will be a good chunk of work, I imagine. But you mentioned something about the importance, and I'm thinking regarding with the light paper. And you mentioned about your book as well, Dave, the idea of holding the physical, it's important, the physical form of a newspaper, the physical form of a book, holding it, touching it, feeling it, smelling it. The wonderful thing about a newspaper is that it can reach out to a wider audience that's away from the online world. So I find the online world, it can be tit for tat. And when the 2 narratives do cross over, there's a crossfire and it gets messy. But the beauty of a book and the beauty of a newspaper is, as I said, you can reach out to a wider audience. Like, for instance, I like the idea that I do my writing and it's very much grassroots. As I write, I have the laptop at home on the kitchen counter or on the kitchen table, and I take it very serious, my role in writing. But I like the idea that where it came from, my little humble abode in Collinstown, something I write could end up someone in the Tube in London can read, or in a cafe in North Yorkshire, or in a pub in Cornwall, or a train station in Manchester. And I'm reaching out to people who may never have considered these concepts and ideas, or may never have known that this is actually going on, that there is cover-ups, that they are being lied to. And that gives me great satisfaction, similar to you, that someone who has your book could give it to a friend who is, let's say, I hate to use that word, asleep, or who is just unaware, and they could read your book and they could change it, you know. And if you get through to a few people like that, our job is done. And that gives me wide satisfaction. And I'm sure it does for you.
It does, and it's more real, isn't it? The ability to be able to pick something up and have it in your hands and read it. It's very impactful. Like reading a newspaper, reading a book. There's something that's more tangible about it, something that's more real about it, something that's more impactful about it.
It's more serious as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, I think the impact. I know the light paper. I've gone out and delivered the light paper in my local area a few times, and it's got quite a healthy circulation, Paul. So the fact that you will have impacted people right across the country with your own personal take on what's happening. So is absolutely brilliant. Now we've got 2 minutes left, Paul, so we'll wind it up.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
we'll
I'm
wind it up
joined
now.
by the little ones. I've
That's
got an
okay.
audience here.
Oh,
An audience with the pub. I've done well. They must be finished all their fruit and biscuits that I threw at them.
Oh, they've had their treats,
so they're in
haven't they?
now, but that's good.
Oh,
I think
brilliant.
so. We're going to do part 2 very soon, Dave.
We are part 2, so we'll do that in the next few days. So part 2, I think what we were thinking of doing, Paul, was maybe read out some more of. I'll read out some more chapters from my book. I think you might have some of your letters from the light paper you're going to read out as well, and we're going to just
fireside reading,
yeah, fireside chats, fireside readings, might get a pint for that. Yeah.
I get my pipe as well. I get my pipe and my little cap.
Get the logs on the fire. Yeah.
Get the logs on. I'm beside the fireplace here, actually. I get turf in.
Oh, brilliant. All right. Well, okay. So thanks for everyone for listening. Please do share this content, this podcast, if you can. If you've watched it on YouTube, you can share it. If you're listening to it on Spotify, you can share it. Paul, thanks very much. I really enjoyed that chat. I really did enjoy that. We hope that whoever's listened enjoyed it as well and got a lot out of it. And we'll be back soon, Paul, for part 2. So
thanks very much, Dave. Thanks as always, and God bless.
All right, speak to you soon. Okay, bye everyone.
Thanks.
Stop.